Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor.
If you would just make sure that your names are on your Zoom so that we know everybody who's everybody based on your full name. So if you could put those on there, that would be appreciated and helpful. Is everybody ready to start today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so let me go ahead and then start so we can get started kind of, I guess, a couple minutes early, but is there anything else that we need to cover right before we do pretrial and all that in regards to Zoom or any of the issues on here that y'all had before that we need to cover?
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Nothing from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Okay, so just if we can, for purposes of just making this a little easier, if the plaintiff would just go first in regards to responses or questions if I have for the both of you, and then the defense will follow. So when we're doing introductions and things like that, just make sure that we're kind of keeping that for, since we're in the Zoom call, it makes it a little bit difficult to talk over one another. So keep that in mind, please. All right, so let's go ahead and get started then. Let me call cause number 18-CV-001-20, style Jordan Street as plaintiff versus Reese Taylor in the district court, the 170th Judicial District of McConaughey County, Texas. My name is Tom Novak. Good morning, everybody. Let's begin with introductions. For the record, beginning with the plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Aisling Fitzpatrick on behalf of the plaintiff, Jordan Street. And with me, I have my co-counsel, Ms. Carolyn McGuigan.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Mcconaughey Okolo, and today I have the privilege of representing Coach Reese Taylor. I'm here with my co-counsel, Drew Burton.
All right, thank you. So we have some time set aside for pretrial matters that need to be discussed, so I'll allow the plaintiffs to begin.
We have nothing to discuss in terms of housekeeping, Your Honor.
Okay. And the defense?
From the defense, Your Honor, yes, a few things. We understand that this is a unique situation being on Zoom, Your Honor, and I would just like Your Honor's permission to remain seated for objections if that's not a problem for Your Honor.
It's not a problem.
Additionally, Your Honor, we might anticipate some impeachments throughout the course of today's trial. Now, if we were in Your Honor's courtroom, Your Honor might not necessarily see the impeachment document as it's going on, but for the purposes of this Zoom, is it okay if we do impeachments over screen share?
So what we typically would want you to do is refer to the document, not bring up the document prior to its admission for the purposes of impeachment. So what that means is that I have copies of the documents, the witnesses have copies of the documents. So if you're going to refer to it, you can refer to it specifically. And then once you bring it in for impeachment purposes and it's admitted for those purposes, then you can share the screen at that point in time. But prior to that, if you're referring to it, then don't share the screen.
Certainly, Your Honor. And with that, we have no further housekeeping matters from the defense.
All right. Are both sides ready to begin with opening statements?
Your Honor, we do have one substantive motion.
All right.
Your Honor, the plaintiff seeks to exclude an improper opinion that we believe the defense may elicit from their witness, Jess Merriweather. He is one of the defendant's trainers on the field during this incident when Rory Street died. We believe this improper opinion includes the witness opining that he does not think the defendant's means of disciplining Rory Street at soccer practice were usual and believes them to be orthodox. By way of background, Your Honor, this is a case where the defendant, the deceased coach, made decisions and created practice drills that caused my client's son to overheat on the field and die on that field. We believe it'd be improper pursuant to Rule 701 for Jess Merriweather to opine on what is proper and what is improper in terms of discipline on the soccer field, and we seek to exclude that portion of testimony coming in, Your Honor.
All right, and defense?
Your Honor, we don't anticipate on having Jess Merriweather opine on what is proper and what is not proper discipline. However, we do have an intention on having Ms. Merriweather opine on what it is that was usual or unusual. Now, Ms. Merriweather is the athletic director at the school, has been an athletic director there for years now. She will be opining as a lay witness in terms of what's usual and unusual at Waco High School, Your Honor. That is all.
All right, so does that satisfy your concerns in regards to keeping out the testimony as an expert analysis of what is reasonable and unreasonable in the circumstances?
Your Honor, the testimony is limited to what happens at Waco High School with the defendant as coach, what is usual and unusual for him to do. The plaintiff has does not oppose that at all.
Okay, so then the motion in limine is granted in regards to that specific issue. And if there is any testimony that goes outside the bounds of that, then obviously we can take care of that as it comes up.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have anything further?
Nothing from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
All right, anything else from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have a few substantive motions. We anticipate or have a good faith basis to believe that opposing counsel might be bringing up testimony about something that happened after the fact. From a proffer, Your Honor, opposing counsel may offer testimony that the school put up tents and provided Gatorade after this incident occurred. We believe that's in violation of Rule 407 as a subsequent remedial measure and ask that be excluded.
All right, and so counsel, do you have any plans to elicit that evidence at this time?
The plaintiff understands this falls within 407, Your Honor, and therefore we will not be eliciting this at this time.
All right, so that motion in limine is also granted based on the agreement of the parties. Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor, one more motion. We have a good faith basis to believe that opposing counsel might bring up testimony about Coach Taylor Reese's previous job before Waco High School. There was an incident at that job regarding Coach Reese and another student. We believe that it violates Rule 404B as it is improper character evidence for prior bad acts.
Plaintiff, your response?
Your Honor, we understand this falls within the precluded 404 evidence, and therefore we will not be eliciting this at the trial today.
All right, then that motion in limine is also granted based on the agreement of parties.
And with that, Your Honor, we have nothing further from the defense.
All right. Plaintiff, any last words?
No, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed to openings, Your Honor.
All right, thank you all very much. Then let us go directly into opening statements, and obviously we'll begin with the plaintiffs.
Your Honor, a moment to set up.
Absolutely.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
You're useless on the field, so I might as well run you until you pass out. Those were the defendant's words to Rory Street minutes before Rory collapsed on the soccer field and died. Now, it didn't matter that Rory was visibly pale, that she was exhausted, that she was unable to catch her breath, and she was clearly struggling. The defendant chose to ignore these signs and instead ordered her player to keep on going. The defendant, her soccer coach, the person who was meant to protect her, watched Rory collapse after being tackled again and again and again and again. You'll learn that when Rory fell down, the defendant yanked her off the ground by her jersey just to be tackled again. Instead of offering Rory water or a break or any support, the defendant watched Rory suffer, and then she watched Rory die. You'll learn that Rory Street died because of the defendant's drills and the defendant's decisions that prioritize discipline over safety and winning over health. Your Honor, I stand before you today representing the father of Rory Street in his wrongful death claim against the defendant. Now you learn that Rory was a high school soccer player who died because of the defendant's negligence. As a coach of his son's soccer team, the defendant had a duty to conduct practice in a reasonable manner that protected the health and safety of her players, like Rory Street. Instead, you'll learn that Coach Taylor breached this duty by going against industry guidance and giving Rory no breaks, providing inadequate supervision, and ordering her to perform physically grueling drills, which were untested and unsafe. This resulted in the death of my client's daughter and any hopes that she had of a future. Now you'll learn about Rory Street today. She was the brightest star on her varsity soccer team. But Rory was a lot more than just a soccer player. She was a daughter, a friend, and really just an 18-year-old kid with her whole life in front of her. Now you'll learn instead of being mentored by her coach, the defendant, she was bullied by a person twice her age, targeted by the defendant until she collapsed and died in the middle of the defendant's soccer practice, in the middle of the defendant's drill. Now, you're going to hear today from an expert, Dr. Mcconaughey, who will tell you that on September 7th, Rory Street died of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And you'll learn that this was caused by the way the defendant ran her practices. You'll learn that she prioritized discipline over the safety of Rory Street. She held practices when it was over 100 degrees outside without any drinking water, without any breaks, and without adequate supervision. Now you'll learn that after the defendant became enraged during the practice by what she perceived to be Rory Street's laziness and sloppiness on the field, she decided to punish Rory. She subjected Rory to soccer drills. First, she had Rory running the Burma Road. This is a drill designed to punish the players, which you'll learn involves a player running for 30 yards, dribbling for 30 yards, and then bear crawling for 60 yards. Now, bear crawling, as the name indicates, means crawling on your hands and knees like a bear. At this point, after doing this drill, you'll hear that Miss Street was visibly unwell. She was pale, she was out of breath, and she was clearly struggling in that scorching heat. Now you'll learn that rather than stopping this drill, the defendant's response was to have Rory participate in a new drill that she invented that very day, one that had never been tested before. The defendant ordered all the other players in the team to line up and slide tackle Rory one by one. Now, slide tackling, as you'll learn, involved other players running up to Rory and then sliding into her to knock the ball away, to tackle her. Now, this resulted in her repeatedly being knocked to the ground. You'll learn that these were painful and unnecessary drills. Now, after the first tackle, you'll hear that Rory fell to the ground and was clearly in visible pain. She was struggling, and the defendant will admit this to you today. You'll learn the defendant's response to seeing Rory struggle was to walk over and instead of offering her water or giving her a break or checking in at all, she yanked her by her jersey and ordered her to continue going. A tackle, a fall, a tackle, another fall. This kept going. Rory kept on hitting the ground and having to get back up until finally, after 15 of these in a row, Rory did not get back up. Rory could not get back up. Instead, you'll hear that she began groaning, shaking, convulsing before passing out right there on the soccer field and dying from heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Now, you're going to hear today that the defendant is taking no responsibility for what happened on her soccer field. Instead, she's blaming Rory for her own death by pointing to a nominal amount of cocaine that was found in her blood during the autopsy. However, you're going to hear from our expert, a medical doctor, who will tell you that cocaine did not kill Rory. The heat did. The evidence will show that Rory died from heat stroke due to the defendant's negligence in the way that she conducted her soccer practice. After she failed to supervise Rory adequately, failed to provide enough water breaks to her in that scorching sun, and forced her to perform grueling, punishing drills that she had never tested and that were unsafe. Your Honor, it was the defendant's drills and the defendant's decisions in the way she conducted her soccer practice, ignoring safety and ignoring her responsibilities to her players, that caused the death of my client's daughter on September 7th. As such, at the end of today's trial, I ask that you deliver the only verdict consistent with justice and with the facts in this case. I ask that you find the defendant liable for the death of Rory Street. Thank you.
Opening statement from the defense, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you. You may proceed.
May it please the court and opposing counsel. Rory Street died suddenly and without warning because she used cocaine before practice on September 7th, 2018. This powerful and illegal drug made it impossible for Rory's body to cool down. In turn, what would have been a normal, routine, and typical soccer practice into a sudden and fatal tragedy. You know, what's heartbreaking most about this entire case is that no one knew what Rory had done until it was too late. Good morning. Once again, my name is Mcconaughey, and today I have the privilege of representing Coach Reese Taylor. Coach Taylor, do you mind just hopping on screen for a moment and waving hi to everyone so they know who you are? Now, in order for you to fully understand what happened, and before I get there, I gotta tell you a little bit about Coach Taylor. You see, Coach Taylor is from right here in Waco, Texas. She went to Waco Elementary, Waco Middle School, went to Waco High, varsity, led her sports. She did it all. It was at Waco High that she developed her passion. She realized that the game of soccer, and quite frankly, every other sport, it was more than the wins, more than just developing that bond with the teammates. It was bigger than that. It was about cultivating that next generation of youth. So Coach Taylor went on to go major in college in physical education because she wanted to be a coach. She wanted to be a health teacher. She wanted to be involved in cultivating that next generation of doctors, lawyers, engineers, those who were able to learn those skills just from the game of soccer. Leadership, teamwork, drive, focus, ambition, everything you need to win a game of soccer, but also win at life. That was Coach Taylor's passion. And that's who Coach Taylor is. But in order for you to really understand how we got to this point, you don't need to know more about necessarily the drills or Coach Taylor's past. You need to know about Rory's relationship with soccer. You see, Rory started playing soccer at the age of 4. Her mom played soccer in high school. Her dad played soccer in high school, and they went on to be able to encourage that into Rory. They thought, hey, we love the game so much, maybe our daughter's gonna love it too. But they realized when they put that ball at Rory's foot, it was more than just a game of soccer. Rory was a prodigy. She was dribbling through cones, shooting shots. I mean, she was amazing. Every single witness today is gonna tell you that Rory was an all-star. You know, when her parents saw that potential, they did what every other parent would want to do, what you and I would want to do. They invested in Rory. Soon, Rory was going to soccer practice after soccer practice, clinics, traveling around the country, playing in Premier Leagues. Her life was dedicated to soccer. You'll even learn that her dad held her back in school because they wanted Rory to be bigger, faster, and better than the high schoolers by the time she got there. They wanted Rory to go off and play Division I athletics and maybe make a career out of soccer. They put a lot of pressure on Rory and they encouraged her to be great. And we don't fault their parents for that. That's what any other parent would want to do. Every parent wants to see their child succeed, get a college scholarship, go to a great school. But you'll learn that as Rory started to go through high school, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, she began to think differently about soccer. You see, Rory's relationship with soccer wasn't the same as Rory's parents' relationship with soccer. You're gonna hear from Rory's best friend, Aubrey. The plaintiff's gonna call. You're gonna hear that Rory began to kind of not like soccer so much. Rory was stressed from the pressure of her parents, stressed from the pressure of trying to be a Division I athlete. Rory just wanted to be a normal high school kid. She was trying to figure out life like anyone does when they're a teenager. You don't quite know yourself at 17, 18 years old. You don't know if you're necessarily gonna want to go off and be that Division I athlete, Rory didn't know what she wanted to do, but she was trying to figure it out. Unfortunately, like most and many teenagers, that stress takes a toll. Not every teenager has the proper outlets to push out that stress, to push out that anger, but unfortunately, Rory turned to drugs. You'll learn that her mother didn't know, her father didn't know, and not even her best friend. And that's what brings us to September 7th of 2018. You see, that day was like every other day for Coach Taylor. It's 3 o'clock, school's out, so it's time to go to practice, right? It's the beginning of August, it's going into September, it's getting hot outside. You know, it's not unusual for it to be hot in Waco, Texas. When it goes above 100 degrees, folks, that's just Tuesday. That's how hot it gets. But Coach Taylor knows there needs to be precautions taken because of the heat. So they provide water, they take breaks, and more importantly, Coach Taylor has an athletic trainer there whose job is to look out for the health and well-being of every student on that field, in addition to Coach Taylor. Now, you heard a lot about that Burma Road drill from Plaintiff's counsel, but you're gonna learn that that Burma Road drill was a decades-old tradition. You'll learn that Rory's father was running Burma Road back in the 90s. This isn't something Coach Taylor came up with. This is something that typically happened. Coach Taylor had been a coach at Waco High School for the past 6 years, and there had been no incident, running Burma Road after Burma Road after Burma Road with no problem. You'll learn that the signs weren't there. Rory was a tough kid, was taught to be tough, to not show emotion, to hide everything that was going on. So she didn't tell Coach Taylor that she was feeling tired. Her best friend Aubrey didn't say anything to Coach Taylor. No one knew. The signs weren't there. The athletic trainer, you're going to learn, didn't see it. And neither did Coach Taylor. It wasn't until a day later that we realized what happened to Rory. You're going to learn that a toxicology report shows that Rory had cocaine in her system the day of September 7th, 2018. And to help you understand why that's so important, you're going to hear from an expert in toxicology, Spencer London. Spencer London is going to take the stand and explain to you, Your Honor, that the problem with cocaine is that it stops the body's cooling process. Typically, when you're outside running in high degree weather, you can be able to cool your body down by taking breaks and taking water. But when you add cocaine to the mix, it makes it nearly impossible for your body to be able to cool down adequately. And when Rory's body was not able to cool down adequately, heat stroke set in. Your Honor, this case, it's not about Coach Taylor's drills. It's not about Coach Taylor being a tough coach. It's not about Coach Taylor necessarily cultivating that next generation of youth. Really, it's about a student who struggled, who made a mistake and didn't have the proper outlets. It's for these reasons that at the end of today's trial, Your Honor, I'm going to ask you to find Coach Taylor not responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Plaintiff, you may call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Aubrey Saracen to the stand. May I proceed, Your Honor?
May.
Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hi, my name is Aubrey Saracen, and I'm 18 years old.
Ms. Saracen, where are you from?
I'm from Waco.
And are you currently in school?
Yes, I go to Waco High School.
Have you figured out yet what you're doing after high school?
Yes, I actually am going to Rice on a full merit scholarship to study engineering and maybe soccer if it doesn't take up too much time.
Now, you mentioned soccer. Do you play soccer in high school?
I do. I've played for all 4 years.
And what league do you play in?
You won? Varsity.
And who is your coach at Waco High?
Coach Taylor.
Now, I want to talk to you about Rory Street, and I know this may be a little difficult, so if at any point you want to take a break, just let me know, okay? How did you know Rory Street?
We played soccer together, and she was also one of my best friends.
When you say you played soccer together, was it on the same team with Coach Taylor?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about Coach Taylor some more. Did she coach you the entire time when you were at Waco High?
Yes.
Can you describe what she's like as a coach?
She's very successful, but she uses a lot of excess discipline. She sort of coaches through punishment.
We'll get to that in just a moment. But before that, I just want to talk about September 7th, 2018. Do you remember that date?
I do. That was the
Sorry.
day that Rory died.
Now, where were you that day, the day that Rory died?
We were at practice.
What time did practice begin?
I think 3:15.
And I just want to set the scene a little bit. What was the weather like that day?
Oh my gosh, it was scorching. It must have been over 100 degrees. It was miserably hot.
Now, were you given any breaks on that miserably hot day?
No.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the actual practice. What did you notice, or did you notice anything about the interaction between Coach Taylor and Rory during that practice?
She was yelling at Rory a lot, and I couldn't tell why she was upset, but she said something along the lines of, "You're useless, so you might as well run until you pass out."
Now, when Coach Taylor yelled at Rory that she was useless and running, and she had to run until she passed out, did she say why she had to run until she passed out?
No.
At that point, did she say that Rory could take a break?
Nope.
Did she offer Rory any water?
No.
Now, you just mentioned running until she passed out. Do you know what Coach Taylor told Rory to do after that?
Yes, she told her to run something called Burma Road, which I was already running myself when this happened.
Can you explain to the court what Burma Road is?
So Burma Road is a drill in which it's a little off the practice field where you run for 30 yards, then you dribble a ball for 30 yards, score on an open net, and then you have to bear crawl the 60 yards back to where you started.
What do you mean by bear crawl?
So it's basically how a bear moves. You get on your hands and your feet and you crawl like a bear.
Now, while you were doing this, was there a set amount of times you would do this drill?
No, you just go until coach tells you to stop.
And what were you doing that day when Rory was yelled at by the coach?
I was already on Burma Road.
And at any point, did Rory come and join you?
She did. She came over after coach started yelling at her.
Now, between the time you saw Rory come over to do Burma Road and her stop doing Burma Road, did she get given a break at any point?
No.
Was she given any water?
No.
Now, I want to talk to you about the layout of the soccer field. Directing court and counsel to Exhibit 2. Do you have that in front of you, Ms. Saracen?
I will open it. You said Exhibit 2?
Yes.
All right, it's in front of me.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, it's an aerial view of the practice field.
And how do you recognize it?
So the blue square is where the regular practice field is, and the red square is where we would run Burma Road.
And is that a fair and accurate portrayal of how the field looked like on September 7, 2018?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the plaintiff offers into evidence Exhibit 2.
With no objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
May we publish that to the court?
You may.
Now, looking at Exhibit 2, Ms. Saracen, can you just explain to the court what we're looking at here?
We are looking at an aerial view of the practice field with the blue square representing the regular practice field and the red square representing Burma Road. The area where we would run Burma Road.
Now, you said you were running Burma Road on September 7th. Where were you running it?
We were running it within that red square. It's just off the practice field.
And while you were running Burma Road, where was Coach Taylor?
Coach Taylor was over on the practice field.
At any point while you were running that drill, did Coach Taylor come over and supervise you?
No.
Did a trainer come over and supervise you?
No.
Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about that diagram. Was there any shade on the soccer field?
No, there weren't any trees. There was no shade.
Now, once Rory joined you to do the Burma Road drill, how was he doing at that point physically?
She looked like she was really struggling. I mean, she was pale. She seemed out of breath. I mean, her hands were on her hips. She seemed almost lifeless.
Did you ask Rory at any point if she was okay?
Yes.
And what did she say?
She didn't really say anything. She just sort of shook her head. She was clearly struggling.
Now, at any point, did you see the defendant interact with Rory again during this practice?
Yes, after a while, he started yelling at her again because she was running too slowly.
What was she yelling at this point?
At this point, she told her to come back over, and she lined everyone up and had Rory start doing slide tackle drills.
Can you explain to the court what a slide tackle drill is?
So a slide tackle drill is where one person is kicking a ball and the other people try and slide at their feet and get the ball away from them by kicking it.
Do these slide tackle drills involve physical contact with the person holding the ball? And can they be painful?
Oh, yes, especially because everyone's wearing cleats.
Now, when the defendant had Rory do this second drill, where were you standing?
I was still on Burma Road, but I stopped to watch.
And about how far away was that from where Rory was running Burma Road? Slide
20
tackle drills.
yards.
Sorry, what was that?
20 yards.
Now, from where you were standing about 20 yards away, could you still see what Rory looked like?
Oh, yes, she was still very out of breath. Her hands were on her hips, and she was still really, really pale and struggling.
Where was the defendant standing at this point?
He was standing over on the side.
And was the defendant closer to Rory than you were?
Much.
Now, at this point, you mentioned earlier that it was very hot out. What was the temperature like by the time Rory was doing the slide tackle drills?
It was still super hot. It was still at least 100 degrees. The sun was beating down.
At this point, did you hear Coach Taylor offer Rory a break at all?
Oh, no.
Did you hear Coach Taylor offer Rory water?
No.
Did you hear Coach Taylor ask if Rory was okay?
No.
Now, can you tell the court what happened during the slide tackle drill once Rory began that?
So as the first person went and did the slide tackle, Rory just sort of collapsed and she hit the ground pretty hard.
Well, when Rory collapsed, what did the defendant do?
Yanked her up by her jersey.
And then what happened?
And made her do it again.
By it doing
Again
this.
and again.
And how many times did the defendant make Rory do this slide tackle drill?
15.
Have you ever seen a drill like this done before during practice?
No, I mean, we've done slide tackles, but never 15 times in a row.
And Ms. Saracen, what happened after the 15th slide tackle?
For the 15th slide tackle, she collapsed again, but she started shaking and convulsing this time, and it almost looked like she was having a seizure, and it just didn't stop.
Ms. Saracen, between the defendant sending Rory over to where you were to do Burma Road and her collapsing on the ground, did she ever offer Ms. Street a break?
No.
Now, you said that she was on the ground at this point. Did Rory ever get back up?
No.
And what did the defendant do in reaction to Rory collapsing on the ground?
Didn't do anything. At some point, the trainer came over and told us to call 911.
And what happened while you waited for an ambulance to come?
She just kept shaking and convulsing and...
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance. This trial is bifurcated. And for us to go on and continue to talk about how she was shaking, convulsing, that just only goes to show damages, Your Honor, and doesn't go to show liability in this case.
Response?
Your Honor, this goes directly to the symptoms that Rory was experiencing on the field, which is an issue in court today. This goes directly to whether or not she died from heat exhaustion and heat stroke and not the cocaine use as defense has proffered.
Okay, so the objection's overruled. You may proceed.
I'm going to ask you once again, Ms. Saracen, what happened as you waited for the ambulance for Rory?
I mean, we just sort of sat there watching her shake, and it really just looked like she was having a seizure, and it just didn't stop. And all we really did was sit there and wait. And then at some point, she just stopped. And she stopped moving.
Thank you, Ms. Saracen. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Saracen.
Morning.
I want to start off by talking about the conditions of a normal soccer practice at Waco High. Now, you all normally start soccer practice in August, right?
Yes.
And it goes on to September, November, and that's about when the season ends.
Yes.
It gets pretty hot here in Waco, right?
It does.
It's not unusual for it to get above 100 degrees.
That's true.
Now, when you all are practicing, you're also provided water, right?
Yes.
You all take breaks during practice.
We're usually allowed one break per practice.
Is your testimony that you're only allowed one break for practice?
I'm not sure. That's just how it usually was.
Well, sometimes you had more than one break, right?
That's true.
And sometimes you had
more,
less.
sometimes we had less.
Now, you also had an athletic trainer there at practice, right?
Yes.
You knew that athletic trainer was there to look out for your health,
Yes.
to look out for your best interest,
Yes.
look out for Rory's best interest.
Yes.
Now, these were the conditions in which you had practiced under for years.
Yes.
These are the conditions in which Rory had practiced under for years.
Yes.
And these are the conditions you practiced under on September 7th of 2018.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about what normally happens at that soccer practice.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you all ran scrimmages.
Yes.
You would run various drills.
That's true.
One of those drills you all run is Burma Road.
Yes.
Now, September 7th, that wasn't the first time you ran Burma Road.
No.
You had to run that time and time again before.
Yes.
You've been running that drill for years.
Yes.
Rory had been running that drill for years.
Yes.
It was a Waco High School tradition.
Yes.
Before September 7th, you can't point to a single incident in which somebody got hurt running that drill.
No.
I want to talk about that Burma Road drill on September 7th of 2018.
Mhm.
Do you remember when opposing counsel asked you if you had any breaks that day
Yes.
and you told her no?
Yes.
But that's not quite true, is it, Ms. Saracen?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't remember if you had breaks that day.
I guess.
I'm asking you whether you know. You cannot remember whether or not you had breaks that day, Ms. Saracen.
We did not have breaks that day.
Is your testimony that you definitively did not have breaks that day?
I believe so. Yes.
Do you remember being deposed in today's case?
Yes.
And do you remember me asking you some questions?
Yes.
You were told you had an opportunity to update that deposition at any time, right?
Yes.
You didn't update that deposition at all.
No.
Would you recognize a deposition if I showed it to you today?
Yes.
Do you have a copy in front of you there?
I do.
Go ahead and turn to that last page of your deposition. Let me know when you get there.
It's up.
Do you see your signature on the back of that?
Yes.
That is your accurate signature, right?
Yes.
Remember, you were under oath when you took this deposition.
Yes.
Same oath you're under today.
Yes.
Now, please read silently as I read aloud, starting at line 4 on page 14. How often did you take breaks? Answer. Usually we took at least one break in the middle of practice after about an hour, but sometimes we took more or less. I don't remember how many we took that day or if we took any. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Now, when you're running Burma Road, that requires you to run 30 yards, right?
Yes.
It requires you to dribble the ball another 30 yards,
Yes.
shoot in the goal,
Yes.
and bear crawl back.
Yes.
You had done this plenty of times with no injury.
Yes.
Now, while you were running Burma Road that day, you said that Rory was looking a little pale,
Yes, that's true.
that she wasn't looking like she normally did.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about, sorry, you noticed there was something wrong with Rory. My apologies.
Yes.
You didn't say anything to Coach Taylor about that, did you?
No,
You didn't say anything to the athletic trainer about that either.
no, because usually talking to Coach Taylor ended up with us doing more drills, and we were already doing enough of those.
You didn't tell Coach Taylor.
No,
You didn't tell the athletic trainer.
no,
To the best of your knowledge, Rory didn't say anything either.
that's true.
She didn't say that she was feeling any kind of differently to the athletic trainer.
That's true.
You didn't say anything to Coach Reese.
Yes.
To use your words, Miss Saracen, that day Rory collapsed out of nowhere.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay as to the statement collapse out of nowhere.
Your Honor, I'm not asking her for an out-of-court statement. I'm asking if it's her opinion now. Using your words, did she collapse out of nowhere? She can adopt that statement here in court today.
Your Honor, may I respond?
No, the objection's overruled. You may answer.
To use your words, Miss Saracen, Rory collapsed out of nowhere.
She had been looking pale and lifeless the whole game, the whole time during practice, but I
The
mean,
question was a little bit more specific, Miss Saracen. It's your opinion that Rory collapsed out of nowhere.
Your Honor, objection, may I be heard?
All right. What is your objection?
It's hearsay again, but Your Honor, opposing counsel is taking the statement from a text message, and therefore it is a hearsay statement that he's trying to elicit in court today.
Your Honor, certainly this witness can adopt her statements here today, and I'm just asking if it's her opinion that Rory collapsed out of nowhere. This isn't improper.
All right. So I guess, well, it's an out-of-court statement. That's clear, whether it's the witness or not who's saying it. Are you using it for impeachment purposes, or are you just using it to repeat what she said?
I'm using it for impeachment purposes, Your Honor. It's her testimony throughout the course of her direct examination that Rory was showing all these signs and that someone should have known. And I'm asking whether it just happened suddenly.
All right. Well, then ask your question as though you're impeaching the witness with a prior statement, as opposed to just using the statement for your own words and having her adopt it by
Yes, Your Honor.
your question. So the objection will be sustained as to the phrasing of the question.
Miss Saracen, Rory collapsed out of nowhere.
I guess.
I'm not asking whether you guess, Miss Saracen. Is that yes or no? Rory collapsed out of nowhere.
No, I would say that after looking ill at practice and being forced to run drills, she collapsed out after the weight of all of that.
Do you remember sending some text messages to a friend?
Yes.
Would you be able to recognize those text messages if I showed them to you today?
Yes.
Do you have those text messages in front of you? That's Exhibit 22.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, we'd like to admit Exhibit 22 into evidence for impeachment purposes and show it to everyone else.
Your Honor, we object on hearsay. We believe opposing counsel trying to backdoor in a hearsay statement in order for the court to hear this hearsay statement. He's using this for the truth of the matter asserted, and therefore it should not be allowed into evidence, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm using it for impeachment purposes. I asked her whether or not Rory collapsed out of nowhere, and she said, actually, no, she did not.
Okay, well, you haven't presented the specific document to the witness, so in terms of impeachment purposes, it won't be allowed at this time. But you're welcome to impeach her with it, and then once the proper predicate has been laid for impeachment, you may try to enter it.
Yes, Your Honor. You have that text message in front of you, right?
Yes.
In that text message, you tell your friend that it happened out of nowhere.
That is what I said. Yes.
You said it happened suddenly.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about after that happened with Rory, after she collapsed out of nowhere, I want to talk about what she had been sharing with you as her best friend.
Okay.
Now, you and Rory had been friends for a long time.
Yeah. She was one of my close friends.
You grew up together.
Yes.
Rory expressed to you that she had been feeling anxious.
Yes.
She expressed to you that she had been feeling like she didn't want to play soccer anymore.
Yes. She was under a lot of stress.
She was under a lot of stress from her parents.
Yes.
Under stress from trying to be a Division I athlete.
Yes.
Ms. Saracen, did Rory ever tell you she used cocaine?
I'm sorry?
Did Rory ever tell you she used cocaine?
No.
Do you know if she ever told her parents if she used cocaine?
No.
Did you ever hear her tell Coach Reese or the athletic trainer that she used cocaine?
No.
I want to discuss why it is you're pointing the finger at Coach Taylor today. Now, you and Coach Taylor have a little bit of a sticky relationship, isn't that right?
Yes,
You were a star athlete in high school.
that's true.
You were going into your senior year as that star midfielder.
Yes,
It was you and Rory tackling the teams, right?
yes,
Going after it, going to get that championship.
yes.
But that starting spot, that was taken away from you.
Yes, we ended up sharing a position.
Well, Coach Taylor took that starting spot away from you and gave it to her daughter.
Yes,
That made you upset.
it did, but understandably so, but only for a short time.
Understandably, that made you angry.
Yes,
You thought that decision was crap.
yes,
And now you're here testifying against Coach Taylor.
yes, but those are unrelated.
We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Saracen, you were asked a series of questions about the breaks you were given during practice on September 7th.
Yes,
Do you remember that?
yes.
From the time Rory joined you during those drills, those Burma Road drills, until the time she collapsed and died on the soccer field, were you given a break?
No,
Now, you were also asked about a statement you made about Rory collapsing out of nowhere. Do you remember that?
yes.
Can you explain the context of that?
I mean, when he asked about what happened, it was only the day after it had happened. So I was still in shock. And I mean, my best friend died in front of me. And just, sorry. And so I was responding to his question, and it all felt like it happened so fast. But I wouldn't say it was sudden.
I'm sorry to make you keep going over this, Ms. Saracen, but it's important. Did Rory on September 7th collapse out of nowhere?
No,
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Defense, any follow-up?
Nothing further from the defense, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This witness is excused. Plaintiff, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dr. Mcconaughey to the stand.
Thank you. For purposes of the record, all the witnesses have been previously sworn, so we're going to dispense with swearing each one of them in. All right.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Morning, my name is Dr. Reagan Mcconaughey.
Doctor, what do you do for a living?
I am a cardiologist.
And where are you a cardiologist?
I'm a cardiologist at McLennan County Memorial Hospital.
What are your duties at that hospital?
I am chief of cardiology, so my job entails overseeing the doctors, residents, and nurses of the cardiology department.
How long have you been the chief of cardiology?
I have been the chief of cardiology since 2010, so about 10 years.
Now, as the chief of cardiology, are you a medical doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you get your degree?
I got my degree from Baylor College of Medicine.
Do you have any other degrees related to your practice of medicine?
Yes, I have bachelor's degrees in chemistry as well.
What positions, if any, did you hold in the medical field before becoming the chief of cardiology?
Prior to becoming chief of cardiology, I was a resident in cardiology at McLennan County and also a fellow.
Now, how many years overall have you worked in the field of cardiology?
About 27 years now.
Can you explain to the court briefly what the study of cardiology involves?
Yes, the study of cardiology involves the treatment and management of disorders of the heart and blood vessels.
Does this include the study of heart attacks?
Yes.
Does that include studying the causes of heart attacks?
Yes.
Does that include heat exhaustion?
Yes.
Heat stroke?
Yes.
Does your work include the study of effects of drugs such as cocaine on the heart?
Yes.
Now, Dr. Mcconaughey, I wanted to ask you about how you got involved in today's case. Can you tell the court that?
So after the unfortunate death of Rory Street, I was contacted by the plaintiff to look into the case for cause of death.
Did you receive compensation for doing this?
Yes, I did.
And have you reviewed any materials regarding this case?
Yes.
What materials did you review in coming to your opinion today?
So I have reviewed the depositions, I have reviewed the toxicology report, the autopsy report, and the weather report from that day.
Did you have sufficient facts and data to come to any conclusions about the cause of death of Rory Street?
Yes.
In coming to that conclusion, did you use reliable principles and methods?
Yes.
And did you reach any conclusions to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
Your Honor, in accordance with Federal Rule 702, we tendered Dr. Regan Mcconaughey as an expert in cardiology.
Without objection, Your Honor.
All right, he's admitted as an expert. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Mcconaughey, after applying your knowledge and expertise to the materials provided in this case, what did you conclude as to the cause of death of Rory Street?
So I concluded the cause of death was heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
And what made you come to that conclusion?
There were three factors that made me come to this conclusion. One were the symptoms that she was showing prior to her death. Two were the findings on the autopsy report, and three were the environmental factors that were involved in that day.
Now, before we get into those three, can you just explain to the court what heat exhaustion is?
So heat exhaustion is a component of the spectrum of heat illnesses. So in heat exhaustion, your ability to dissipate heat from the body starts to become impaired. So you start to get mild mental status changes in addition to an increased body core temperature.
And can you explain to the court what heat stroke is generally?
When you get to heat stroke, you start to have significantly increased core body temperature above 105 degrees Fahrenheit, in addition to signs of multi-organ failure and significant neurological deficits such as stupor, coma, etc.
Now, you just said when you get to, are these two, heat exhaustion and heat stroke, related in any way?
They are related in that they are on a spectrum of heat illness, with heat stroke being obviously the worst end.
Now, can either of those, heat exhaustion or heat stroke, be fatal?
Yes.
Now, and one of those or both of those, doctor?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to talk to you about the reasons you gave for coming to your conclusion today. Taking your first one, what symptoms did Rory exhibit before her death that led to your conclusion that she died of heat exhaustion or heat stroke?
So the symptoms that led me to that conclusion were the reports of her being seeming out of it, appearing sluggish, looking very pale, complaining of abdominal pain, also starting to complain of chest pain. Things of that nature are consistent with heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
Now, your second point was that you reviewed the autopsy and saw signs related to heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Can you tell us about those?
Yes. So the two things from the autopsy report that I noted were the cerebral edema, which is associated with heat stroke, and then also the signs of muscle breakdown as well.
Now, the third thing you mentioned was the environmental factors that played into this. Can you explain how those related to the heat exhaustion, heat stroke?
Yes, I can. So on the day in question, that reported temperature around the time was 105 degrees Fahrenheit, which with that temperature, as well as with the humidity factor, is very high risk for heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
Now, doctor, earlier you said that you studied the effects of drugs such as cocaine on the heart. Do you believe that cocaine caused Rory's heart attack on September 7th?
While cocaine was present, I do not believe that this was the cause of death in this case.
So if it wasn't cocaine, what was the cause of death?
The cause of death was heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
Now, based on your training and your expertise, would having an 18-year-old kid doing sprints in 100-degree plus weather increase or decrease the chance of getting heat stroke?
This would increase.
And what about having them dribble a soccer ball in that weather? Would that increase or decrease the chance of heat stroke?
This would increase.
What about having the individual run a bear crawl, which is crawling on their hands and knees in that 100+ weather? Would that increase or decrease the chance of a heat stroke?
This would increase.
What about repeatedly getting slide tackled on that field in the 100-degree weather? Would that increase or decrease the chance of getting heat stroke?
This would increase.
Now, doctor, would being provided with water increase or decrease the chance of heat stroke or heat exhaustion?
This would decrease risk.
Now, based on your review of all the materials in this case, did the defendant offer Rory Street any water during this practice?
The review that water was offered, but not at a rate that would decrease the overall risk.
Now, would being able to go into the shade...
Your Honor, that's an improper opinion, if I may be heard.
Okay.
We don't believe this expert witness has the sufficient facts and data pursuant to Rule 702 to make an opinion that there was not enough water given to Rory at the time or not enough water provided that day that would significantly decrease the rate of heat stroke. If I may proffer, Your Honor.
Okay.
Nowhere in this expert's testimony or in their report they were provided even talk about the amount of water that was provided, how much would decrease or increase the rate of heat stroke. None of that was even mentioned, Your Honor.
Well, let me just cut off the plaintiff there in terms of response. So, I mean, he's already been tendered as and admitted as an expert. So is this more questions for cross-examination than it is?
Well, Your Honor, I believe the specific opinion that not enough water was provided in the sense of not enough water to increase or decrease the rate of heat stroke, that specific opinion is an improper opinion pursuant to Rule 702.
And plaintiff, do you agree with that?
No, Your Honor. First, Your Honor, this was an untimely objection. This witness just answered that not giving this individual enough water would increase the chances of a heat stroke or heat exhaustion. Based on his expertise in the field of cardiology and what he knows about heat stroke and heat exhaustion, he is more than able to answer this question based on his expertise and training in that field.
Okay, then the objection is overruled. You may proceed.
Doctor, based on your review of the materials, did the defendant offer Rory Street water that day?
Yes.
And based on the materials you reviewed, was Rory given enough water on the day in question in relation to heat stroke or heat exhaustion?
In relation to heat stroke, heat exhaustion, no, I don't believe so.
Now, would being able to go into the shade during practice, during that 100-degree weather, increase or decrease the chance of heat stroke or heat exhaustion?
It would decrease.
Would getting a break from physical activity while outside in the heat increase or decrease the chance of heat stroke or heat exhaustion?
It would decrease.
Your Honor, no further questions from this witness at this time.
All right, thank you.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
Vince, you may proceed.
Good morning, Dr. Reagan.
Morning.
How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. I want to start off right where you left off. To be clear for the judge, you don't know how much water Rory was given on September 7th, 2018.
Yes.
That's a yes, you don't know how much water Rory was given.
That's a yes, I don't know exactly how much water.
Now, when it comes to, heat and playing sports, you understand that mix happens quite frequently, right?
Yes.
You went to Baylor Medical School, so you know it gets real hot here in Waco, right?
Yes.
I'm sure after having your time in Waco, you've seen football teams practice,
Yes.
soccer teams practice,
Yes.
maybe some kids down the street playing basketball outside.
Yes.
There's plenty of times people are doing all of that in over 100-degree weather, right?
Yes, that is true.
There's plenty of times they're not passing out from heat stroke.
Yeah.
Heat stroke is just not that simple, right?
Objection, Your Honor, vague.
Your Honor, I don't believe it's a vague question. If the witness doesn't know, if the witness doesn't believe they can properly answer that question, they can say that, but I don't believe the question was vague.
All right, the objection is overruled.
Heat stroke is just not that simple, is it, Dr. Reagan?
It's a complex process.
Right, it's a very complex process, right?
Yes, it's a complex process with a very simple starting point.
And you've spent years studying this process.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about illegal drugs, cocaine specifically. You're familiar with the narcotic cocaine, right?
Yes.
You know this can be a very dangerous drug,
Yes.
very powerful drug.
Yeah.
You know it affects people differently.
Yes.
There's a large spectrum on how cocaine can affect an individual.
Yes.
Someone can take cocaine for the first time and have no bad reaction.
Yes.
Someone could take it for the first time and have a heart attack.
Depends.
You just don't know how a specific person is going to react to a narcotic like cocaine, right?
There's no certain way to know how a person is going to react to cocaine.
You know cocaine was involved in this case.
Yes, the autopsy report said so.
Autopsy report shows that there was cocaine present in Rory's system on September 7th of 2018.
On the toxicology report, yes.
Now I want to talk about how someone can put themselves in danger of heat exhaustion.
Okay.
Now, one factor that contributes to heat exhaustion are social factors, right?
What sort of social factors are you referring to?
Stress.
Okay.
Is that a yes? Stress can lead to heat exhaustion?
In a way, yes.
Feeling undue pressure.
No.
Your testimony that peer pressure or family pressure couldn't necessarily lead to heat exhaustion?
I wouldn't necessarily say just having peer pressure would just lead you into heat exhaustion.
Well, you understand that certain pressures the body may be having that could lead to heat exhaustion or contribute at least.
Could contribute, yes. So,
More so, you know that cocaine and narcotics can contribute to heat exhaustion.
cocaine and narcotics will, I guess I'll say yes, they can contribute.
You know specifically that amphetamines and amphetamine-like substances contribute to heat exhaustion.
Yes.
Cocaine is an amphetamine.
They can contribute, yes.
Now, cocaine, that can cause hypothermia, right?
Yes, it can, is a known side effect.
Now, hypothermia basically means that the body is restricting its blood flow.
Hypothermia refers to elevated body temperature.
Elevated body temperature, that means your body temperature is going up, right?
Yes.
That means your body temperature is not cooling down like it should.
Yes.
That's the result of cocaine being brought on by hypothermia. Sorry, I'll rephrase. That's the result of hypothermia being brought on by cocaine, potentially.
So if you're saying that cocaine can cause hypothermia, yes.
And hypothermia can cause your body not to cool down fast enough.
If you have hypothermia, yes, your body is not able to cool as quickly as it should.
And if your body can't get as cool as it should, you can suffer from heat stroke in 100-degree weather.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about Rory's condition on September 7th of 2018. As you said on direct examination, you reviewed all the depositions in today's case, right?
Yes.
Nothing you reviewed said that Rory told Coach Taylor that she was stressed from peer pressure.
Correct.
Nothing you reviewed said that Rory told Coach Taylor that she was feeling stressed from parental expectations.
Yes.
Nothing you reviewed told you that Rory told an athletic director that she was taking cocaine.
Yes.
Nothing you reviewed told you that Rory made Coach Taylor aware on September 7th that she had used cocaine.
Yes.
I want to switch gears for a moment, Dr. Reagan, and talk about your past, your history here. Now, you've been a doctor since 1993, right?
Correct.
That's about almost 30 years. We're going up on 30 years soon.
Yes.
Now, in that time, you've never held yourself out to be a toxicologist.
I'm a cardiologist by training.
So you're not a toxicologist.
No, I am not a certified toxicologist.
You've never had specific toxicology training.
I have not had specific toxicology training, but my day-to-day interactions with toxicologists and things of that nature are a lot.
Well, you've never even testified on the subject of toxicology, right?
I've testified in various cases, yes.
Your testimony, you've testified in various cases?
I'm sorry, what?
I'm looking at your I have your CV here, Dr. Reagan. You've never testified in cases before.
I've been retained as an expert in toxicology in less than 10 cases.
Never testified.
No.
Now, you're being paid today, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
You're being paid $350 an hour for your time creating your report for today.
$350 an hour for the report, for the review, yes.
And an additional $500 an hour for your testimony.
Yes.
How much time did you spend on this case?
Spent significant time reviewing all the documents to come to the conclusions.
More than 3 hours?
I'm sorry?
More than 3 hours?
I don't remember exactly.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Mcconaughey, you were asked a series of questions about pressures that were put on Rory. In your opinion, in coming to the cause of death of Rory Street, did these factor into it?
In my opinion, the peer pressure and things of that nature didn't factor in this case. The cause of death, as I mentioned before, based on the evidence that I reviewed, was heat exhaustion, heat stroke due to the evidence.
And what did contribute to the heat exhaustion and the heat stroke, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it was the environmental factors at the time, with the temperature being 105 degrees and the humidity being extremely high.
Now, you asked a series of questions about the cocaine found in Rory Street's body pursuant to the autopsy. Do you consider the cocaine found in the system before reaching your conclusion?
I did consider the cocaine before reaching my conclusion. It was there, but I still hold that the cause of death was heat exhaustion. Sure.
And what did you conclude about the amount of cocaine found?
The amount of cocaine was a nominal amount. That also was supported by the autopsy report that showed that there was not significant erosion in the throat, which would be more consistent with which would not be consistent with habitual use of cocaine.
And Dr. Mcconaughey, because it was a nominal amount of cocaine found, how did that affect, if at all, the cause of death of Rory Street?
So it was a nominal amount. I still, based on the review of all the evidence, would say that the cause of death was heat stroke, heat illness.
Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further from this witness, Your Honor.
Recross, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Now, Dr. McConaughey, you said there was nominal amounts of cocaine found in Rory's system, right?
Yes, sir.
You know that toxicology report was done more than 24 hours after Rory passed away.
Yes, sir.
You don't know how much cocaine Rory was in Rory's system at the exact time she passed away.
Without having yes, there's no ability to know exactly how much was at that exact moment, if that's what you're asking.
You don't know how much cocaine Rory ingested before practice on September 7th of 2018.
No.
We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right. Plaintiff, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
You may, thank you.
Your Honor, pursuant to the testimony we just heard, the plaintiff moves in or seeks to move in Exhibit 14, which is the autopsy report of Rory Smith, and at this time.
All right. Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, it's admitted.
With that, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
All right, so just before we begin with the defense case, we're going to take just about a 3-minute comfort break so that you can get set up and prepared. If there's anything else that we need to take up before then, just let me know when we come back.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right. Defense, are you ready to proceed with your case?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then let's get back with it. I'll allow you to call your first witness.
Your Honor, before we do that, I just have a Rule 50 motion to probably be heard on that, Your Honor.
You may.
At this time, we'd like to move for a directed verdict and viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the non-moving party, that being the plaintiff. We don't believe that a reasonable trier of fact, such as yourself, would be able to rule in favor of the plaintiff, Your Honor. It was their obligation today to prove foreseeability, Your Honor, to prove that Coach Taylor would be able to foresee her actions causing Rory's death, Your Honor. Now, today we've heard numerous times that Coach Taylor was not there when Rory was running the Burma Road drill, that Rory, Aubrey, the athletic director, never saw anything in Rory Who never told Coach Taylor anything that Rory was struggling, having chest pains, or was too tired to run, Your Honor. We don't believe sufficient evidence has been laid that somehow Coach Taylor should have known that the normal actions that Coach Taylor had been running for the past 6 years suddenly were inadequate given the circumstances, Your Honor.
All right, response.
Your Honor, when viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the non-moving party, here the plaintiff, we have presented sufficient evidence for a reasonable finder of fact to find that this was foreseeable to the defendant. First, we had testimony from Aubrey saying that the defendant yanked the deceased Miss Street up when she fell down and collapsed after the drills she was doing by the defendant. The defendant ordered her to do those drills. She pulled her up in order to make her do more. We also heard the weather that day was extremely hot. Despite that, the defendant gave them no breaks during the time of the drills and provided inadequate water. And further, there was no shade on the field. And at no point did the defendant ask Rory Street if she was okay, if she wanted a break, if she needed some water. All that goes to the foreseeability of her collapsing due to heat stroke and heat exhaustion, and then dying on the field due to those things, Your Honor.
All right. So the defendant's motion is denied at this time. You may proceed by calling your next witness.
Your Honor, at first, we'd like to call Jordan Street to the stand, the plaintiff in today's case.
All right. I think you may begin.
Your Honor, permission to treat the witness as hostile.
At this point in time, is it adverse witness, so you can conduct your, I guess, the questioning in form of cross, but referencing him as hostile at this point in time is a little bit premature.
Oh, certainly, Your Honor. Now, I want to start off by talking about your relationship with Coach Taylor, Mr. Street. Now, you were involved in Coach Taylor being hired, right? You were actually instrumental in Coach Taylor being hired.
I wanted her to come, yes.
You hired Coach Taylor because Coach Taylor was a winner.
That's correct.
Coach Taylor was a hard worker.
Yes.
You wanted Rory to be coached by a winner.
Yes, that's right.
That's because you wanted Rory to go out and get that D1 athletic scholarship.
Yes, she was talented and she had the ability to do that. And I wanted her to have that opportunity, yes.
And you felt as though Coach Taylor could give her that opportunity.
I did. In retrospect, that was a bad idea.
Well, in high school, Rory had won multiple semifinals, right?
Yes.
Rory had gotten that D1 scholarship at the end of high school, right?
Yeah, she had scholarship offers from a number of Division I schools, yes.
A number of Division I schools, right? That was your dream.
Yes, it was her dream too.
I want to talk about what made Coach Taylor so successful. Now, to be good at anything, you got to practice, right?
You do?
You got to do something over and over again to get the hang of it.
Yes.
In soccer, that involves slide tackling, right?
Yes.
Many times in games, you're going to need to slide tackle, right?
Yes, slide tackles are a part of the game, yes.
So you got to practice.
You do have to practice, yes.
And when you practice, you run drills, right?
You do run reasonable drills to practice, yes, you do.
One of the reasonable drills that you run at practice is Burma Road, right?
Yes.
You ran Burma Road back in the
I
90s.
did. We ran Burma Road when I played soccer in high school, yes, we did.
You never complained about Burma Road.
I was never run to the point of exhaustion. Our coaches never ran us to the point of exhaustion on Burma Road.
You never complained about Burma Road.
I don't recall ever complaining about it.
You knew Coach Taylor had been running Burma Road with Rory, right?
Yes.
Before September 7th, you didn't think that was an issue.
I did not.
And to be clear, Burma Road that was being ran was no different from the Burma Road that you had, right?
It was the same place.
Right, you run 30 yards,
Yes.
dribble 30 yards.
Yes.
You don't go,
Correct.
then you bear crawl back 60 yards.
Yes.
Same way it's always been done, it's that tradition, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about why it is that Rory didn't necessarily complain on September 7th of 2018. Now, you knew Rory was a gifted soccer player, right? You knew that.
Yeah, she was a good soccer player. She was great.
You saw that at the age of 4.
I did. We could tell very early on that she had talent.
She was-
Athletic talent generally, yes.
She was a soccer prodigy.
Yes, I'd call her, yes,
So you wanted her to work hard,
I did.
become a champion.
Of course,
You taught her to be tough.
I did.
You believed that Rory was tough because you made her tough.
Yes,
Most importantly, Mr. Street, you taught Rory not to complain.
right.
Thank you. We have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Any cross?
Just to redirect, Your Honor, or Mr. Street, now I'm sorry that you have to go through this and talk about your daughter's death here today in court. I'm sure it is very difficult for you.
Thank you, it is.
I just want to ask you just a few questions. Did you ever see your daughter take cocaine?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Your Honor, we have no further questions from this witness.
All right. Thank you. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. You may step down. Defense may call next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense would like to call Coach Taylor to the stand. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Good afternoon, Coach. How you doing? Nick, you might be muted there, Coach.
Sorry.
No worries. It's new for all of us. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone?
I'm Reese Taylor.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach.
Well, sure. I'm 48, from the Waco area. I've been in Texas my whole life. I coach the girls' high school varsity team there. I also teach a health class. I guess a little bit about my background would be I've been coaching for 26 years now, I think it is. I've coached, high school athletics can be a little different. So I've coached volleyball, track, basketball, softball even a little bit. But as far as soccer goes, more than 20 seasons I've been coaching, and the last 6 have been at Waco High.
Now, Coach, I know coaching can be tough. Why have you stuck with it so long?
Well, some of my best mentors that I had growing up were my coaches. I studied at Texas A&M. I got my degree in physical education, but I always knew that I wanted to be a coach. I think it's one of the best ways to really make an impact in these students' lives, to give them that structure and kind of teach them what it means to work towards a goal.
Have you been able to do that?
I have.
Now, I want to talk about how it is you run practice as a coach. What happens at a soccer practice at Waco High?
Oh gosh, I mean, it depends. We vary it from day to day, but you're going to see lots of drills, lots of conditioning. Anyone from Texas is going to know we do deal with the hot temperatures, but a lot of team building things as well, I'd say. So it's just really what I tell the players is you practice like you want to compete. So we do have fun, but it is work. We teach them discipline.
Coach, we've heard a lot today about a Burma Road drill. Is that one of the drills you run?
Yeah, Burma Road. I think I ran Burma Road back in the 90s when I was at Waco High too. So it's a pretty long-standing tradition. Just a good, it can be a discipline tool, but it is something we do as part of our conditioning, and we incorporate that in our practices sometimes.
Is it dangerous?
No, I would not say it's dangerous.
Since the time you've been running Burma Road, have you seen anyone get injured running Burma Road?
No. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary. Sure, we have injuries. That's why we have a trainer, but Burma Road has not specifically caused anything like that.
Now, I want to switch and talk about some of those precautions you take as being a coach, some of those health precautions. Now, is it important to take safety precautions as a coach?
Definitely, of course. We do what we can to keep these players safe, knowing that it is a contact sport. We're out there in the heat. And so we do what we can. We allow the players breaks. All they have to do is speak up. If they're not feeling well, I'll send them straight to Jess, our trainer. He's great. He's got tape. He'll, for the ankles, he'll bag the ice. He'll do, what they need. So.
Do you always provide water for the students?
Yeah.
You always provide breaks?
Yeah.
How about shade?
Shade, yeah.
On that soccer field, is there any sort of trees?
Not on the field, but sure around it.
Now, typically, when you're practicing, is there any shade on the actual field?
No.
Is that unusual?
No, I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, they're out there in the heat and that's just part of it. But again, that's where the conditioning comes in.
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike the answer as speculation and lack of personal knowledge as to whether this is usual or not to have shade on a soccer field.
Your Honor, this witness is the coach of the high school soccer team. It's important for her to understand what this coach understood on September 7th, 2018 to determine whether or not Coach Reese acted reasonably. If it's not unusual for there not to be trees on the soccer field, that certainly means that Coach Reese probably was not acting unreasonably.
All right, the objection's overruled.
Now, Coach Reese, I want to kind of switch gears for a moment and talk about Rory. Do you know Rory?
Yeah, I knew Rory.
Was Rory one of your soccer players?
She was. She was one of the star players.
She a very talented player?
She was one of the best, yeah.
Would you consider Rory a tough player?
I would say Rory was one of the toughest players on the team. She was incredible. There were days where she almost seemed superhuman. Always a pretty hard worker. So, yeah.
Did she ever really complain?
No, not usually.
Now, I want to talk about September 7th, 2018 specifically. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I do.
Did you have soccer practice that day?
We did.
Did you run any scrimmages or drills that day?
We did. We were running a full scrimmage that day at practice.
What happened when you were running that full scrimmage?
Well, that was the day that Rory died. I was on the sidelines and I was watching the scrimmage. And during the scrimmage, I had seen Rory kind of dogging it. She was goofing off a lot. It was a little out of character, to be honest. And so I sent her to run Burma Road, and that's what she did.
Were you here for the testimony of Aubrey?
Yes.
Did you hear when Aubrey said that before you told her to run to Burma Road, you said, "I'm going to run you till you pass out"?
I heard that, yes.
Did you say that?
No.
Now, when Rory got to Burma Road, was she still dogging it?
Yes, she was. She was
Still goofing
not.
off?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, was she still goofing off?
She was.
So what'd you have her do?
So, well, that's when I realized that she just wasn't taking it seriously still. So I went ahead and lined up the team, and we were going to do a side tackling drill with Rory. So she was dribbling the ball, and her teammates would slide tackle.
Had you ran this specific slide tackling drill before?
Not this specific one, but we slide tackle pretty regularly. That's part of the game, and it's something we do practice, but not this specific drill, no.
Is it unusual to run slide tackling drills in practice?
No, not at all.
While Rory was at practice, did Rory ever tell you she was feeling chest pains?
No, she didn't.
Did she look unusually fatigued?
No, everything seemed just completely normal.
Was she looking any different than the other students that were also out there practicing?
No, she wasn't sweating any more than anyone else. I didn't notice anything. I wish I had, but no.
Were you here for the testimony of Aubrey when Aubrey said that Rory told her she was having chest pains and wasn't feeling okay?
Yes, I heard that.
Did Aubrey tell you that on September 7th?
No, nobody told me anything like that.
And was there an athletic trainer there?
Yeah, that was Jess. Jess was there.
Jess say anything to you about what was going on?
No.
What is Jess's job at the school?
Well, Jess is the athletic trainer, so he helps monitor for injuries. Obviously I'm keeping an eye out on things too, but it's always best to have that
second person there, the trainer who can help if the players are not feeling well, things like that. They know they can go talk to him. So he's there with water and ice and things like that.
Coach Taylor, was there anything unusual about practice on September 7th, 2018?
No, I mean, it was a normal practice day.
On that day, did you know Rory had ingested cocaine?
No, I found that out later.
Thank you. We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Coach Taylor.
Good morning.
Now, I want to talk to you about your role on the soccer field. Now, you're in charge of the soccer field during practice, right?
That's right. Sure.
As a coach, you have the responsibility to players, right?
Yes, I do.
To look out for their safety.
Yeah, along with Jess.
But you're in charge, right? Not Jess?
That's correct.
Now, you would agree that safety is the greatest priority when it comes to your players.
Of course.
Over winning,
Yeah.
over disciplining your players.
Yeah, I put my players' safety at the top of the list. Yeah,
And safety includes the health of players, right?
it does.
Now, on top of being a soccer coach, you're also a health teacher at Waco High.
That's right.
Now, players' health on the field can be a concern in hot weather.
It can be.
Now, if you see a player struggling, you can help them, right?
What do you mean?
If you see a player struggling on your field, you can help them, right?
Yeah, I can. I'm sure if I saw something out of the ordinary, I'd probably send them to Jess.
How about we go through some ways that you could help a player who is struggling? You can get them water, right?
Well, so normally I wouldn't bring out the water. The players can ask for water breaks and they'll be allowed to take them. But
Coach Taylor, if you were to see one of your players struggling on the field, you could bring them water, right?
I could.
You could get them a trainer, right?
I could, yes.
You could get them medical attention.
That's correct.
You could end practice.
Yeah.
You could take a break.
Mm-hmm. We do
That
take
is-
breaks.
That is all under your control as the head of that field, right?
That's correct.
Now let's talk about how you keep up with safety practices on the field. Now you attend coach clinics several times a year, right?
Yes, I do.
And that's to keep up on the latest coaching techniques,
Yeah.
the best practices in your industry.
Yes.
You talked a lot on Direct about what's usual on a soccer field, right?
Uh-huh.
Now you make sure to keep up on what's usual and the best practices in your industry.
I do. I really try to stay up to date with those things. So like you said, I go to the clinics and the meetings and things like that.
That includes attending a meeting of the annual Texas High School Soccer Coaches, right? You remember attending that?
Yes.
That's because you're a Texas high school soccer coach, right?
Yes, I am.
Now you attended that meeting on June 15th of 2018.
That sounds right. I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, that sounds right.
We can agree that you attended the meeting before Rory Street died at your practice.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm directing court and counsel and the witness to Exhibit 11. Coach Taylor, just let me know when you get to that exhibit.
Okay, I have it.
Now you recognize that as the slides you saw from the presentation you attended on June 15th, right?
Yes.
You recognize that because you've seen those before.
Yes, I have.
And those slides are in the same or substantially the same condition as they last were when you saw them.
I believe so.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff offers Exhibit 11 into evidence.
We would object to hearsay, Your Honor.
Plaintiff, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. We're not using this for the truth of the matter asserted, but rather this goes to the witness's notice. On direct, she spoke about what is usual in soccer practices, having shade, etc. This all goes to the notice that she was on, that the best practices in the industry were when she attended this practice, and as an offer of proof, the things that she did not do in relation to seeing what best practices were. So again, we're not using this for the truth of the matter, but rather the notice that this witness was under in seeing these slides.
Defense.
Your Honor, this most certainly goes to the truth of the matter asserted. It's opposing counsel's burden today to prove that Coach Taylor breached her standard of care owed to the students, and that that breach was the foreseeable cause of Rory's injury. They're using this document to show that that was the duty of care that Coach Taylor owed, and that Coach Taylor did not follow these specific guidelines, and because of that, Coach Taylor breached her duty. They're using it for the truth, not for notice, Your Honor.
All right, the objection's overruled. You may be permitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may.
Now, just to be clear, Coach Taylor, these are the copies of the slides that you saw at the presentation on June 15th, right?
Yes.
Now, in these slides, it talks about what to do when you hold practices in hot weather, right?
Yeah.
Now, September 7th was a hot day.
Yes, it was.
It was over 100 degrees outside.
I think it did reach over 100. I don't know the exact temperature, but yeah.
But it was over 100 degrees. We didn't agree with that?
Sure.
And here in this slide that you saw at the coaches meeting, it says, when temperatures reach above 100 degrees, you must include a 5-minute break every 15 minutes. You see that?
Uh-huh. Yes, I do.
To be clear, your practices did not have a break every 15 minutes, right?
It really depends kind of on what we're doing at the practice, but I don't know. We don't do 15-minute practice. Sorry, we don't do breaks every 15 minutes on a regular basis.
To be clear, that's a no to my question. You don't have 5-minute breaks every 15 minutes, right?
Correct.
On the day that Rory died, you didn't have a break during that practice before she died, right?
I can't recall.
You don't remember if you had a break that day?
I can't recall right now. I think that we did before that happened.
You believe that you had a break before Rory died that day?
I believe so, but to the best of my recollection, yeah.
From the time that you had Rory running the Burma Road drills to the time you had her slide tackling, is it your testimony that you had a break in between that?
Not between the slide tackling drill and when she collapsed. No, we didn't have a break then.
Okay. Now, it also says on this document that break should be in the shade if possible, right?
Yes.
Now, on direct, you said you did provide shade, but not on the soccer field, right?
That's right.
So to be clear, there is no shade on the soccer field, right?
That's right.
No trees.
No.
You never erected a tent, right?
There was not a tent that day.
Yeah. So you didn't give your players any shade on that soccer field.
No.
Now we can agree these slides pertain to the safety of players and what coaches can do for their safety, right?
That's right.
You ignored the recommendations in those slides.
We didn't follow that particular guideline. No.
So by not following them, you ignored them, right?
I wouldn't say that. I did the best that I could, but we did not have a tent that day. So those guidelines are helpful recommendations, but there's also some discretion with the coaches. And so I wouldn't say that I ignored the guidelines.
I understand that it's your discretion not to give your players shade or breaks, but just to go back to my question, you didn't follow what those guidelines said, right?
Well, I give my players breaks, but no, I didn't follow that guideline. That's right.
Not the breaks that it said on those slides, right?
That's right. The one that you read.
Yes, the one that you attended.
The meeting, yes.
Let's talk about what happened with Rory at practice on September 7th. Now, we can agree that you were frustrated by Rory's performance that day.
I was, yeah.
You believe that she was goofing off, right?
She was.
You believe that she wasn't listening to you.
She wasn't. I think that Rory sometimes didn't like getting criticism from authority figures.
I'm going to bring you back to what you did that day. You believe she wasn't listening to you, right?
Well, she wasn't. Yeah.
And nothing gets you angrier than a player who isn't listening to you. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating.
So you started yelling at Rory that day during practice.
Yeah, I probably did.
And after yelling at Rory, you made her go and do drills, right?
Yeah.
The drills you made her do were to teach her a lesson.
Yeah, that's why we do a lot of these drills, frankly. I mean, these girls, they know that they can have some fun, but there's also a point where it's time to get serious about practice. So that is something that I do, and I did do that day.
We can agree that running Burma Road wasn't fun for Rory, right?
It's not supposed to be fun.
Right. It was supposed to teach her a lesson.
Yeah.
Now, just to be clear, running Burma Road involves sprinting 30 yards. Right?
Right.
Sprinting means running as fast as you can.
Yes.
And then you dribble the ball for 30 yards.
Yes.
And after that, you crawl on the ground like a bear for 60 yards, right?
Yes.
Rory was doing this in that hot weather that day, right?
She was.
And players are supposed to repeat this until you tell them to stop.
That's right.
Now, during this time, you weren't watching Rory do the Burma Road run, right?
No.
You didn't have your trainer go over and watch her, right?
No.
You said on direct that it's important to have a trainer on the field, right?
Yes, Jess was there that day. She was watching. I told her to keep an eye on the players, and I did. I mean, I could see what was going on, but I wasn't watching only Burma Road.
Burma Road is done over to the side, right? Not where regular practice is done.
Right.
And you have a trainer there to watch over your students because you can't watch them all at the same time, right?
That's right.
You believe it would be irresponsible for a coach to not have a trainer paying attention to students.
Absolutely.
You couldn't tell me today if Miss Merriweather was watching Rory while she was doing those drills, right?
I don't know. I assume so.
You don't know, right, Miss Taylor?
Right.
Now, you weren't satisfied by the way that Rory was doing Burma Run that day.
That's right.
So you decided to introduce a different drill, right?
Yeah, that's when we did the side tackling drill.
Now, to be clear, this was a drill that you invented that very day, right?
Sure, I guess you could say that.
Well, we can break that down. You've never done that drill before, right, Coach
No,
Taylor?
Not
You
that.
invented it? Sorry.
Sure. Sorry.
So we can agree that you invented it that day.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, you said on direct that you want to practice like you want to compete. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Now, you've never seen a competition where a player has been tackled by 15 players in a row back to back, right?
No, that probably wouldn't happen in a game, but a lot of times with these drills, we're really drilling in the repetition. So that's not unique to that particular drill, I would say.
Let's talk about that repetition. This drill involves players tackling Rory, right?
Yeah. They were side tackling. Yeah,
That can involve a lot of physical contact,
it can.
which, as you said, is repeated over and over again, right?
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
I didn't think it was dangerous. I thought that it was what I needed to do to get Rory to cut it out and really get serious about practice that day.
Well, you understand, or you knew at the time, that Rory being tackled over and over again could lead to her falling to the ground, right?
I knew that could happen. That's what happens when we practice side tackling, as we do a lot of times at practice.
I'm interested to clarify one thing. You never practiced it 15 times in a row like you did on September 7th when Rory died, right?
Right.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Your Honor, we were merely following up on this witness's answer.
Objections overruled.
Now, you had this drill run 15 times, correct?
Yeah, I think it was about 14 or 15 times.
You're not sure how many times you had Rory slide tackled.
It was about 14 or 15.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It was about 14 or 15.
You weren't keeping exact count, right?
I was I was watching, I can tell you it was about 14 or 15. So no, I guess not exact count.
Now, you saw Rory struggle during this drill, right?
Yeah,
At no point did you ask her how she was feeling.
no, she didn't say anything.
Going back to my question, you didn't ask her how she was feeling, right?
Right.
Despite seeing her struggle?
Yeah.
Despite seeing her struggle, sorry, I'll let you finish.
Oh, I just was going to say that a lot of times in these drills, the point is to have the player struggle a little bit. And so, I mean,
Coach Taylor, I understand your point is to have players struggle, but I'm going to direct you back into what was happening on September 7th. After seeing Rory struggle, you didn't ask her to take a break, right?
no, I didn't.
You didn't ask her to get some water, right?
No,
You didn't stop the drill when you saw Rory struggling.
no.
You just kept having your teammates tackle her.
Yeah, we continued with the drill.
Eventually, Rory collapsed on the field, right?
She did.
She started to shake.
Yeah,
She started to have what appeared to be a seizure on the ground, right?
yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Coach Taylor, opposing counsel was asking about some of those recommendations you get from the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Are those something you must do?
No, they are good guidelines, but it's not something where it's sort of strictly enforced. They're good recommendations to use, but it would vary, I would say.
Are those the only places you get guidelines from?
No,
Are there other places to get guidelines from?
absolutely.
Do guidelines vary?
Yes.
Did you do anything unusual on September 7th, 2018?
No, it was just a normal practice day, just like any other.
Did you do anything unsafe?
No, I mean, no.
Do you believe you did what a reasonable person would do?
Yes.
Thank you. We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This witness is excused.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to call Jess Merriweather to the stand.
All right.
May I proceed?
You may.
Good afternoon, Mr. Merriweather. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. Thank you for asking. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone here?
My name is Jess Merriweather. I am an athletic trainer at Waco High.
How long have you been an athletic trainer?
So I've been doing athletic training at Waco High for about 2 years now, but I've also had a little bit of experience doing it while I was getting my master's from Texas A&M.
Can you tell us a little bit what it's like to be an athletic trainer at Waco High?
Yeah, so the school has an athletic trainer at every single athletics practice, just to like supervise and make sure that all of the athletes stay healthy and in shape. So if a athlete has a problem, they can come to me and I can try to fix them up or see what kind of treatment that they need.
Do you supervise what the coaches are doing with the players?
Yeah, I do.
Are you looking out for health concerns?
Yes, I am.
Now, I want to talk about specifically what happened on September 7th of 2018. Now, were you there that day?
I was.
Do you know who Rory Street was?
Yes, I do.
Were you watching Rory that day?
I mean, as much as any other athlete at the practice, there was a bunch of soccer players there.
As an athletic trainer, do you have a good relationship with Rory?
Yeah, I would say so. As good as any of the other athletes on the team.
Had Rory confided in you things that were going on with her before?
No, she never usually came to me with any problems.
Did she tell you she had been using cocaine at all?
No, she did not.
Do you suspect it?
At the time, as of September 7th, no, I did not suspect that she was using cocaine.
So at practice on September 7th, did you see anything out of the ordinary?
No, nothing out of the ordinary at that practice.
Did you see the Burma Road drill being ran?
I did see her running the Burma Road.
Had it been run any differently?
Nope.
Had you ever had a student suffer from heat exhaustion because of running Burma Road?
No, that's never happened before.
Had you ever had any student suffer heat exhaustion as a result of any of the drills that Coach Taylor had run at practice?
Nope, first time.
Did you see Coach Taylor do anything unusual at Waco High?
Not on September 7th, or really, no, never.
After watching practice, watching the Burma Road drill, watching the slide tackling drill, did you see anything that would have raised health concerns?
No, not from my vantage point.
Thank you. We have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Frost?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Merriweather.
Good morning.
You were at practice the day that Rory died, right?
Yes, I was.
And just to be clear, your job is a trainer on the field,
That is correct.
which means you have to keep players safe,
Yes.
healthy.
Yes.
Now, you saw that day that Rory was running Burma Road.
Yes.
You weren't watching Rory closely, right?
No, not closely.
To be clear, Coach Taylor never asked you to go over and watch Rory closely.
That is correct.
During the time she was running Burma Road, you were 40 yards away.
Yes, that sounds right.
You were busy taping up a different player's ankle.
Yes.
So if Rory was pale while doing Burma Road, it's possible that you just did not see it, right?
Yes.
If she was standing over 40 yards away holding her chest, it's possible you didn't see it, right?
That is correct.
It's possible you didn't see her struggling while running Burma Road while standing 40 yards away taping another player's ankle.
Yes.
But from 40 yards away, you did see that Rory was sweating, right?
Yeah.
She was sweating hard, right?
I mean, we were all sweating that day.
I'm just going to bring you back to what Rory was doing, the person who died on the field. She was sweating, right?
Yes.
She was sweating hard.
Yes.
Now, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about Coach Taylor. Now, you're here testifying on the defendant's behalf, right?
Yes.
Now, you like Coach Taylor.
I do.
Do you want to try and impress her?
Yeah,
In fact, she wrote you a recommendation letter for the promotion that you got, right?
she did.
To be clear, that was a promotion that you got 2 months before you gave your deposition in this case.
Yeah,
That's after Rory died on September 7th
it is.
and before you gave the deposition.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, did Rory look pale on September 7th, 2018?
I didn't see from where I was.
Did she look lifeless?
I didn't see.
Did she look any more fatigued than you normally would see her?
Not from what I could see.
Did you see her sweating more than normal?
Nope.
Did she look like she was having chest pains?
No.
Did it look like she was having trouble breathing?
No.
Did she look any more fatigued than all the other players out there practicing and exercising?
I mean, given other than the fact that she was on Burma Road, no.
Thank you. We have no further questions from this witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This witness is excused.
And at this time, Your Honor, the defense would like to call our final witness, Spencer London.
All right.
Your Honor, do you mind if I take a brief moment and try to give this person a phone call real quick?
All right.
One moment, Your Honor.
All right, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You hear me all right?
I am.
Awesome, awesome. Now, can you introduce yourself to everyone for us?
My name is Spencer London.
Now, Mr. London, what do you do for a living?
I'm a toxicologist.
What does that mean?
It means that I analyze and make reports on different sorts of body fluids, urine, blood.
What does it take?
Say it
What does
again?
it take to be a toxicologist?
I have a degree from Texas State University in toxicology.
Where'd you go after you got your degree?
For the last 15 years, I've been with a group called Toxicology Associates that I helped start.
Do you know why you're here today?
I do.
Why is that?
I'm here to give you my opinion of what, based on the toxicology report on Rory's blood, I think might have contributed to her death.
Now, in coming to that conclusion, did you use reliable principles and methods in the field of toxicology?
I did.
Did you apply those reliably?
Say it again?
Did you apply those reliably?
I did.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to tender Mr. London as an expert in toxicology.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, then you may call him as an expert.
Now, Mr. London, what all did you review in today's case?
I reviewed a number of the depositions that were taken in this case. I reviewed the autopsy report and I reviewed the toxicology report.
Now, I want to begin to talk about some of your expertise. As your time as a toxicologist, have you ever dealt with amphetamines?
Yes.
Give me an example of amphetamine.
Cocaine. Oh, amphetamine? Sorry, speed. Usually it's called like speed.
Is cocaine an amphetamine-like substance?
In terms of the way it affects the body, yeah, it elevates the body rate.
What do you mean when you say it elevates the body rate?
Everything starts happening faster. Your heart beats faster. You start breathing faster. It's you tend to have a euphoric feeling at times, but then you can end up in a depressive state. It affects you in a number of different ways.
Does it affect body temperature?
Oh yes, it affects body temperature because one of the things it does is it constricts your blood vessels, and the body relies on a flow of blood from the inside to the outside, outer part of your body, the skin level. It's kind of a cooling mechanism, and so when the blood vessels are constricted by a substance like cocaine, it impedes the ability of the blood to sort of cycle through and hit the outside and cool down. And so the internal temperature builds up.
Would I be correct in saying that when someone takes cocaine, it makes it more difficult for their body to cool down?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would I be correct in saying that it would also contribute to their body heating up?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about how that might have affected today's case. Did you come to an ultimate conclusion?
I did.
Share with us that conclusion.
My conclusion is that her ingestion of cocaine on the day of her death contributed to her death.
Now, Mr. London, how did you come to that conclusion?
By looking at the toxicology report of the blood test sample and the amount of cocaine that was in her blood at the time that it was tested, and then based on my knowledge and understanding of the relationship between those toxicology levels and the impact on a person's body.
Now, we've heard that the amount of cocaine in Rory's system at the time of that toxicology report was nominal.
Yes.
Your Honor, objection. At this point, counsel is testifying. All his questions have been leading, and he is at this point testifying.
Your Honor, I was beginning to ask my question. I'm not testifying. I'm trying to direct the witness to the testimony that I'm about to ask him about what he means by nominal and what that means to give us some context, Your Honor.
Objections overruled.
Mr. London, we've heard to the amount of cocaine referenced in Rory's system as nominal. Do you believe that to be true?
Well, it depends on what time we're asking about. The time it was tested, which was more than 24 hours after she passed away, the amount would have been considered nominal. But the problem with that is that the cocaine has a half-life of about an hour. And so every hour, the toxicity in your bloodstream cuts in half. And so an hour before, she had 60 nanograms An hour before, based on the half-life of cocaine, it would have been 120. An hour before that, it would have been 240. And so the fact that the test here, the blood test, was made more than 24 hours after she had passed away is not indicative of how much the level of cocaine was at the time she passed away.
Well, Mr. London, is that in that 24 hours, would that really have made a difference in terms of symptoms?
Yes. I mean, because presumably at the time she passed away, the level of the toxicity in her blood was a lot more than it was when it was ultimately tested. And so that would be evidence of the impact on her body functions.
If we had a toxicology report from, say, 3:15 in the afternoon on September 7, 2018, do you believe the amount of cocaine in Rory's system would have been higher?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Objection to this line of questioning as to the half-life of cocaine. Plaintiff was not put on notice about this opinion from this witness, and therefore this should not be allowed pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 26. We've heard no mention or no prior notice of a half-life of cocaine from this witness.
If I may, Your Honor.
Please.
Cocaine having a half-life, that's not an opinion. That's just the science that allows Mr. London to understand how cocaine works with the body. That's his field of toxicology. He's just explaining to us what it is that cocaine does to the body and how it digests in the body. That's not an opinion, that's just science.
Or is that something that he used in his report?
It most certainly is something he's evaluated, Your Honor. Looking at the report, I'm not sure if the term half-life is mentioned, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond to that? May I respond?
You may.
It is absolutely nowhere in this witness's report about the half-life of cocaine or the calculations he's just got into or anything about what would have happened if it had been tested a day before in terms of the half-life of cocaine.
If I may, Your Honor, it is very clear in Mr. London's report that he believes the nominal amount is only because it was tested 24 hours later, and that he believes there would be more than that nominal amount if it had been tested earlier. That opinion is very clear, and opposing counsel was well on notice in that almost a year now.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Well, so let me kind of cut through that. I'll sustain the objection as to the specifics regarding half-life and any testimony regarding that, I guess, opinion. And with regard to his opinion as to whether or not it was more or less at the time, I will allow that based on the prior tendering of this expert and his report.
Your Honor, move to strike testimony as to the half-life.
All right, so I'll disregard that testimony.
I want to be clear for your Honor, Mr. London. If we would have tested Rory's bloodstream on September 7, 2018, say around 3:15, do you believe that Rory would have had more cocaine in her system?
Significantly more than was shown in the toxicology test that was taken more than 24 hours after her death, yes.
Thank you. We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Do you have any cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. London.
Good afternoon.
Now I want to talk to you about the amount of cocaine in Rory's blood that you based your opinion on. Okay. Now, on direct, you said the amount of cocaine in Rory's system could possibly be higher than 60 nanograms, right?
At what point in time? You have to be more specific for me.
You said that, let me withdraw that. Prior to her toxicology being tested and sooner to when she died, you said the cocaine in her system could possibly have been higher than 60 nanograms, right?
No, I said most likely was.
Is your testimony you said most likely?
That's what I just testified, yes.
You gave a report in this matter, right?
I did.
And in that report, you gave a complete and accurate account of all the work you've done.
I did.
Of all the opinions you've come to.
Yes.
Yes. And you didn't leave anything that was relevant out of that report, right?
I did not.
I'm a direct court and counsel to, one moment, Your Honor. Exhibit 18, page 3. You remember writing in your report, Mr. London, that it's possible the amount in the cocaine in her system was higher throughout the course of the day, right?
Right.
Not that it was more likely. You didn't write that in your report, right?
No,
You said it was possible.
I did.
Now, sitting here today, you don't know if it was higher, right?
Well, I, as a matter of science, it would have been higher, yes.
I'm going to bring you back to what you wrote in your report. You believe it's a possibility that it was higher, but you didn't test Rory's blood on the day that she died, right?
I did not.
You don't have a report from the day that she died, correct?
No one does.
I'm going to bring it back to you and your opinion. You do not have a report from the day that Rory died, right?
No, I don't.
And you would agree with me that 60 nanograms per milliliter is a nominal amount.
Yes,
And nominal means very small, right?
it can, yes.
Now, it's your opinion that cocaine may in part have led to Rory's death,
Yes.
which means something else could have caused her death, right?
My opinion is that the cocaine contributed to her death. Yes, if that's what you're saying.
To be clear, your opinion is that it in part caused the death, right?
It contributed to her death. Yes.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the reasons why you believe that. Now, you believe that Rory's symptoms that she exhibited on September 7th were consistent with the cocaine use, right?
Yes.
Symptoms such as being unusually pale,
Yes.
having trouble breathing,
Yes.
groaning,
Yes.
nausea,
Yes.
vomiting,
Yes.
struggling during practice.
Yes.
You're also aware that those symptoms are consistent with heat exhaustion, right?
Yes.
And consistent with heat stroke.
Yes.
And you reviewed the autopsy in this case, right?
I did.
You also saw that Rory suffered from cerebral edema, right?
I did, which can result from vasoconstriction, consistent with cocaine use.
You didn't mention cerebral edema in your report that you generated for this matter, right?
I did not know.
You didn't list it as a symptom associated with cocaine use, right?
I did not.
You also saw in her autopsy that she suffered from muscle breakdown. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That's not associated with taking cocaine, right?
Not necessarily.
But you do know that both of those things are related to heat stroke, right?
Yes, but remember, my theory is that the cocaine contributed to the heat stroke.
So I'm going to, just to be clear, muscle breakdown is not associated with taking cocaine though, right?
If the vasoconstriction cuts off blood to the muscles, there can be some deterioration in the muscles.
Let me be, maybe I should be a little clearer, Mr. London. In coming to your opinion and in writing your report for this case, you ignored both cerebral edema, right?
I didn't ignore it. It was on the autopsy report.
Well, you didn't add it in your report, right, Mr. London?
I did not.
And you didn't add muscle breakdown in your report, right, Mr. London?
I did not.
Now, to be clear, you're here testifying on behalf of the defendant in this matter, right?
I am.
The defendant is paying you to be here.
Like your expert, yes.
I'm going to bring you back to what you're doing here, Mr. London. The defendant is paying you to be here, right?
Of course.
He's paying you $500 an hour.
Well, when I'm testifying, $750.
So now you're earning even more sitting here right now talking to me, right?
Yeah.
Now your job is a private toxicology consultant. That's what you do for a living?
I analyze toxicology reports, yes.
You rely on people like the defendant to hire you for cases like this.
Yes.
You also write for the Defense Lawyer Weekly, right?
Yes.
We can agree the Defense Lawyer Weekly is a defense magazine for defense lawyers, right?
You're the lawyer, yes.
Well, to be clear, you've never written for the Plaintiff Lawyers magazine, right?
I don't know that there is one.
And you've never written for one. If there were one, you've never written for a Plaintiff's Lawyers magazine.
Never asked me to, no.
So that's a no?
That would be a no.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. London, I see you getting paid quite handsomely here today. Is that something that's unusual?
Not at all.
Is this your normal rate that you get paid?
Yes.
I want to go back to your opinions for a moment. You told us earlier that cocaine was in part what caused Rory's death. What do you mean by that?
Well, the effects of the cocaine would have exacerbated the effects of practicing on that hot day. In other words, I mean, the heat stroke is consistent with a consequence of ingesting cocaine.
Any doubt in your mind about that?
None.
Thank you. We have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This witness may be excused.
Let you turn it off.
All right, let me call your next witness.
With that, Your Honor, the defense has nothing further. We'd like to rest our case in chief.
All right. Any rebuttal?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Well, let's prepare for closing arguments. In regards to time, how much time are we anticipating taking?
Kind of depends on how much time maybe I have left, Your Honor. Do you,
So I've been keeping track. You've got about 13 minutes in your case. For Mr. Colo, you have 13 minutes. And Ms. Fitzpatrick, you have about 21 minutes left. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, prior to closings, maybe take a short recess.
yes, we were. I just wanted to make sure that we were good on the time in terms of if anybody needed a warning in regards to the time left in their closing arguments or just cut you off when you've run out of time.
The plaintiff does not require a warning, Your Honor. Thank you.
For the defense, Your Honor, maybe just about a minute warning if I get that long.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, then yes, let's take a break for just 2 minutes or so, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. All right. Both sides ready for closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. We'll begin with the plaintiff, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Yes, Your Honor. You're useless on the field, so I might as well run you until you pass out. Those are not the words of a reasonable person. That is not what a person charged with protecting her players' health and safety should be saying. But those words, run you until you pass out, is what the defendant told Rory Street moments before she collapsed during soccer practice. Shaking, seizing, and then dying because of the negligent actions of Coach Taylor, the person responsible for her health and safety on the field. The defendant, Coach Taylor, prioritized discipline over safety and winning over health. And Rory Street was a victim of this. What occurred on the defendant's soccer field on September 7th was egregious. It was preventable and it was negligence. Your Honor, we have proven by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant was negligent in both her drills and her decisions. She had a duty to conduct practice in a reasonable manner that protected the health and safety of her students and her players, just like Rory Street. Instead, Coach Taylor breached this duty by going against safety guidelines. She gave Rory no breaks after she started running those drills, provided her with inadequate supervision, and ordered her to perform physically grueling drills which were untested and unsafe. Those actions, the defendant's actions, resulted in the death of my client's daughter and any hopes that she had of her future. Now let's talk about the ways in which the defendant breached her duty to conduct her practice in a reasonable manner. Now, Your Honor, make no mistake, this was not a regular or a usual soccer practice. The defendant was angry. You heard her admit that on cross. Nothing gets the defendant more heated than a player who isn't listening to her. And that's because the defendant's job depends on winning. Winning is everything to this defendant. But the cost of winning should not be the safety of high school kids. So when her star player wasn't doing what she told her to do during practice, the defendant lost her temper. And she decided to punish Rory Street by having her run that Burma Road drill in that 100-degree weather. Now, you heard this drill consisted of having the student run sprints, dribble, and then crawl on the ground like an animal. This drill was designed to punish and to exhaust, and it did what it was supposed to do. It exhausted Rory, and it punished her. You heard how Rory was visibly in pain. She was pale, she was having chest pains, and she was exhausted. She was struggling out there on the field, which the defendant admitted to you on cross-examination today. But you heard the defendant's response to seeing Rory struggle wasn't compassion, it wasn't worry. Instead, she invented a brand new form of punishment that very day, designed just for Rory: death by slide tackle. Now, you heard one alone involves lots of physical contact, but 15, one after the other, that was deadly. The defendant had never used this drill before in her 26 years of coaching. Rory's teammate Aubrey had never seen this drill before, and that's because this is beyond the bounds of what a reasonable soccer drill should look like. The defendant told you these tackles involve lots of physical contact, and that yes, Rory would fall down, yet she ordered the whole team to line up and take turns attacking Rory, one after the other, sliding into her, knocking her down again and again and again. Now, you heard after just one of those, the defendant had to yank Rory back up by her jersey because she couldn't get up on her own. And then she did 14 more of those under the defendant's orders. All of this in the unforgiving, scorching heat that day that was over 100 degrees. This was not a learning practice. This wasn't replicating what happens in competition. This was a punishment to Rory, pure and simple. Now, Aubrey told you this, but the defendant admitted this on cross. The defendant wanted to make an example of Rory that day, an example she made. The defendant's actions killed Rory Street on September 7th. Let's talk about the heat. We've heard a lot about the heat during this trial, and now we're not arguing that soccer practice should cease to exist when it's hot outside. We understand that it gets hot in Texas in September. Because of this, coaches like Coach Taylor have to adapt in order to ensure safety of their players. You saw Exhibit 11. You saw these guidelines that the defendant also saw, and you heard how the defendant was supposed to follow these guidelines. Instead, she ignored each and every one of them, pretending that there was shade on the field when really there wasn't. Not a single tree, not a tent, nothing. The defendant gave no breaks to Rory from the time she started the drill to the time she collapsed on the ground after the defendant's invented drill. These breaks weren't given, and there was no shade for them to be given under. All the defendant had to do to make it more safe for her players was to give better breaks, more breaks, or to provide some shade. And the defendant didn't even bother to do the bare minimum on September 7th. Now, how do we know that the defendant's breach of her duty caused the death of my client's daughter? Well, that's because we heard from an expert in the field of cardiology, Dr. Mcconaughey. Now, we brought you an expert and the only medical doctor that you heard from today who told you it was heat exhaustion and heat stroke that killed Rory Street on September 7th. And he walked you through the symptoms that Rory showed of this beforehand and the signs of this in Rory's autopsy and the environmental concerns surrounding this. The cerebral edema and muscle breakdown that was found is indicative of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. As to the other symptoms, excessive thirst, pale skin, weakness, fatigue, sweating, seizing on the ground, all the ones that Aubrey confirmed that Rory Street was facing on September 7th, she confirmed she could see them visibly that day. It was clear that Rory was experiencing heat stroke and heat exhaustion. You know who ignored all of that? The defendant in this case. She chose to ignore those signs, but Your Honor, you must not ignore those signs in coming to your verdict today. If Aubrey could see this, so could the defendant. She just did not care about her, and that is negligence. Now, rather than take responsibility for this, the defendant wants to blame a nominal amount of cocaine that was found during the autopsy, and it was a nominal amount of cocaine. Cocaine was not responsible for the actions of the defendant. You can't blame cocaine for the defendant ignoring safety of players on the field. You can't blame cocaine for forcing players to run around in scorching heat without any breaks, without any water, without any shade. You can't blame cocaine for the defendant's failure to supervise Rory as she was ordered to perform those grueling drills. You can't blame cocaine for the defendant making up a new drill that ended up in her dying. You simply cannot blame cocaine for Rory's death in this case. And all the defendant could bring you to substantiate this was a word of a toxicologist whose entire expert report was essentially speculating that because there was cocaine present in the autopsy, that must have been the cause of death, maybe in part. Now, you saw him fight with me at every question on cross-examination. Even though he deviated from his report and his opinions, let's think about why he's here testifying today. He needs people like the defendant to pay him. That is his job. People like the defendant keep him in business, and they keep him writing for publications like Mr. London does. But even their hired gun could only blame the cocaine in part. He couldn't get past the heat stroke. And our expert, the cardiologist with degrees in biology and chemistry, told you unequivocally it was not the cocaine that caused Rory's death. It was the heat, and it was the defendant. Her drills, her decisions. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Street, lost his daughter because of the defendant's actions. Now, he was dragged into court today by the defendant in order to be asked questions and to make it seem as if it was his fault that we're sitting here today in court. But he is not responsible for the actions of the defendant. The defendant watched Rory die on his field, doing her drills, and without helping her. Because of this, the defendant was negligent. As such, we ask, Your Honor, that you find the defendant liable for the death of Rory Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court and opposing counsel. Rory Street died suddenly and without warning because she used cocaine before practice on September 7, 2018. It was impossible for Rory's body to cool down because that drug was so powerful and so potent. It turned what would have been a routine, a normal soccer practice, the same soccer practice Rory had been going day in and day out, to something that was suddenly tragic and fatal. Unfortunately, no one knew what Rory had done until it was too late, Ron. You know, in this day and age, a lot of times we have distorted views of drug use, right? We think that sometimes it's the individual who is a habitual user, the older person, or someone else who's going to overdose, right? Most of the times, teenagers don't think it's going to be them. The one time they use it, they think they're going to be okay. It's not going to be a big deal, but that's not the case. Drugs are powerful. They're unpredictable. We don't know the extent of what these powerful narcotics can do. You heard that time and time again, Your Honor, from both the plaintiff's expert and the defense's expert. You know, I asked Dr. Reagan, hey, are these drugs predictable? Do they affect people differently? He said, yes. One person could react just fine, but another person could literally have a heart attack and die from the first use. We can't predict what's gonna happen with these drugs, and neither could Rory. That's why we're here today. And you know, throughout the course of today's trial, you've seen that Coach Taylor couldn't have seen what was going on. The signs were not there. You heard from Aubrey's best friend. I know she tried to deny it. I know she was in denial today, but she's told us it happened suddenly. It happened out of nowhere. You heard from the athletic trainer. I didn't see Rory tired. I didn't see her unreasonably fatigued. I didn't see her unreasonably sweating. I didn't see the signs. You didn't hear Aubrey, Rory's best friend, say that I told Coach Taylor what was going on. Coach Taylor said she didn't see the signs, that Rory wasn't looking any different than the countless of other students who were out there, all under the same heat, other students running Burma Road. I mean, even Aubrey told you today that Rory was a soccer prodigy, the best player on the team by far, way better than anything Rory could have done right. But Aubrey was just fine. Aubrey had been running that Burma Road drill 15 minutes prior before Rory even got there. There had been no issue. Opposing counsel keeps pointing at this Burma Road drill, pointing at this drill, but you heard this drill had been run since the 90s. We had to bring the plaintiff here today to give you a sense of what was going on, Your Honor, to understand this context, because I told you at the beginning of today's trial, Your Honor, it wasn't going to be about Coach Reese's techniques. It wasn't going to be about that specific practice, Your Honor. It was going to be about the relationship Rory had with soccer. And when you understand that relationship Rory had with soccer, you learn that that relationship was strained, that Rory was stressed, that Rory was feeling the pressure, the weight of her parents' expectations, the school's expectations. She just wanted to be great. And in that effort to be great, she made a bad decision. And that bad decision ultimately led to that heat stroke. Now, Your Honor, our opposing counsel keeps telling you, like, hey, Rory died from heat stroke. We agree. Countless times today, we've told you Rory died from heat stroke, but we wanted to be very nuanced, Your Honor. We asked Spencer London to take the stand for a reason, a toxicologist, someone who can tell us the impacts that drugs have in the body. He said, hey, cocaine was in part what caused Rory's death. It was in part because cocaine causes the body not to be able to cool down. Under normal conditions, without the cocaine, Rory has showed us that time and time again, her body was able to cool down under that heat. This has been her 4th year at that high school, her 4th year running those same drills under that same heat. Those other 3 years, there was no problem. Nothing was an issue. Her body was able to cool down every single time, but this year was different. On September 7th, the one thing that was different was the cocaine use. Coach Taylor did nothing wrong. There was water provided at practice. The athletic trainer was there. They took breaks. Opposing counsel wants you to believe that we don't know how many breaks they took. We don't know how much water they took, but it doesn't matter, Your Honor. Even Aubrey couldn't tell you, I don't remember how many breaks we took. Their own expert couldn't tell you how much water that Rory even ingested that day. Your Honor, nothing was different about that practice other than the fact that Rory used cocaine. That's what made the difference in today's case. That's what made it unable for Rory's body to cool down. It's not about Coach Taylor's techniques. If we're asking ourselves what a reasonable person would have done under the circumstances, you got to think back. Coach Taylor had been doing this for 6 years now. Every year running the same drills, the drills that she had learned. She did what she had been doing day in and day out. All today was about was whether or not Coach Taylor saw the signs. And we've seen that Coach Taylor did not see any of those signs. And so when you don't see any of those signs, and you've done the same thing that you normally do, you're acting reasonable. Nothing indicated to you that you needed to change what you had normally done day in and day out. Your Honor, this case is quite literally just that simple. I understand. I understand the plaintiff's frustration. I understand plaintiff's counsel's frustration. It's tough to recognize these facts and to sit with these facts, Your Honor. Nobody wants to blame the person who passed away. We're not trying to blame Rory, Your Honor. We're not blaming Rory's parents for being great parents, for wanting to instill the champion in Rory. No one blames her parents for that. No one blames Rory for that. So I understand that her parents want to point the finger at Coach Taylor. It's the easy target. Pointing the finger at someone who's innocent is not justice, Your Honor. It's not. Coach Taylor acted reasonably under the circumstances. Coach Taylor did what Coach Taylor had been doing for the past 6 years. If we ask ourselves what was different that day, the one thing that was different was that cocaine use. And no one knew what Rory had done until it was too late. Your Honor, it's not about the techniques. It's not about that slide tackling drill. It's not about Burma Road. Your Honor, this case is about the struggle of a 17-year-old girl. A struggle that led her to drug abuse and that led to the ultimate death. Coach Taylor is not to blame. Find her not responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
The defense just stood up here and told you that Rory Street died suddenly and that there were no signs. Let's talk about the signs that the defendant saw on her soccer field while running her drills on September 7th. Rory Street was on that field clutching her chest, sweating profusely, out of breath, struggling. These are all signs that your player is not okay. These are signs that you need to take a break, that you need to address this. You need to ask your player, hey, can I help in any way? These are signs. Instead, the defendant had her do an untested and invented drill she made up that very day in order to punish Rory. Another sign, after the first drill, Rory fell to the ground. The defendant had to yank her back up by her jersey. Your Honor, that is a sign. If you can't stand on your own 2 feet, something's not right. The defendant ignored this. She had her run that drill 14 more times. It's no wonder that she died. The defendant has been a coach for 26 years and she's never used that drill. And she allowed her player to fall down after the first one and then keep on going. Those are signs the defendant chose to ignore. And because of that, the defendant is negligent in this case. That's why, Your Honor, we ask that when you use this verdict form to determine the negligence, we ask that you answer question 1 in the following way. Did the negligence, if any, of the persons named below proximately cause the accident in question? As to Reese Taylor, the answer is yes. And then we ask you find Reese Taylor 100% liable for this death. It was her decisions, her drills that killed Rory Street. She failed to supervise Rory adequately, failed to provide enough breaks, failed to provide water, shade, and then forced her to perform a drill that she had never tested, which resulted in Rory dying right there on the defendant's soccer field at the defendant's practice. Find the defendant liable for the death of Rory Street.
All right, thank you. This will conclude the hearing. I appreciate both sides. I guess today we're not going to be able to give any kind of feedback like we normally would in this competition based on our time issues and everybody being on Zoom. But feel free to let us know if there is any issues that y'all felt we should know about. But thank y'all again. I appreciate it. Y'all did a great job. I'm sure I speak for everybody who's a witness and one of the jurors, I guess, in saying that y'all were fantastic, and I think it was really fun. So I enjoyed it. I know sometimes it doesn't look that way, but I had a good time with it. So I hope y'all did too.
Thank you.
All right.